My name is Gemma McGregor, and I'm the Provider Development Officer for the Education and Early Years T-Level at NCFE. In this bite-sized recording, we're going to explore the Chief Examiner's Report for Education and Early Years Employer Set Project Summer 24 series. We'll be providing some insights into their findings around the ESP across both early years and assisting teaching, sharing some key themes to celebrate, some areas for development, and how to address them within your classroom. Here we can see that generally there was a clear understanding from providers regarding what's expected for this assessment. Students were prepared for the various components of the project and the assessment objectives, and students mostly engaged well with the tasks, demonstrating a clear understanding of the assessment. They used the information available to them from the project brief. There was also some creative and effective use of PowerPoint in supporting Task 3 that showed a high level of preparation for professional discussions. However, there were a few instances where providers had uploaded handwritten tasks, making them difficult to mark, and meaning that marks for digital skills could not be awarded. Some students did not understand what constitutes a reflective account and simply described what they'd done for each task. And some evaluations were descriptive statements, and some did not include any reference to improvements. Both evaluation and analysis need to be provided within these accounts. We're now going to break down the ESP into its component tasks and take a look at some common areas for development. Let's begin with Task 1, A and B. In the early years educator plans, some students did not understand the needs of the child in terms of appropriate expectations, sometimes expecting the child to be fluent in phonics and reading. There were also examples where students stated the wrong name of the child and used interchangeable pronouns, he and she, which meant a lack of clarity when awarding marks. In some assisting teaching plans, only maths was considered as an area of need, and while this was the main area of development to plan for, there were other relevant information regarding the child's holistic needs to consider. What we can take from this is that students would benefit from developing their reading skills. Can they unpick the brief and understand what it's asking them? It would also be good to support your students to proofread, making sure they have names and key information accurate. It's also evident from the report that students need to be aware of the bigger picture and how to extend their response to these tasks so that they can demonstrate a more holistic approach to their planning. Some plans did not include methods on monitoring the child's progress and ways to work with the child's parents and specialists to meet the child's needs. And this meant that higher band marks could not be awarded as the plan did not fully address the child's needs. Some students simply repeated the intervention plan and did not focus on one activity, which meant they lacked the depth for the higher marks. Students often did not include how the activity linked to the wider curriculum, tending only to highlight the main area of need, for example, literacy or mathematics. There were positive examples, however, where students did make links to expressive art and design or PSHE where relevant to their activity. Again, these examiner observations suggest that students should be supported to consider other factors when creating their plans. The example quote on this slide really illustrates a sound approach for Task 2 of the Education and Early Years ESP. This student has detailed the feedback she was given by her peer and what she's done as a result. This showcases to the examiner that the student has understood the feedback, taken it on board, and added it to her plan. It's worth noting here that even if a student decides not to action a piece of feedback, they should still reflect on it. If they've chosen not to do something and have a rationale for this, then marks can be awarded for this too. Now let's move on to Task 3. For this task, you're required to video record your students taking part in their professional discussion. You'll see on screen now some points the examiner has made specifically in relation to the recording. A top tip here would be to set up a mock ESP. This will help with planning and timings and also the video quality. When recording, consider the video camera angle. For example, ensure on the recording that the examiner can see eye contact and body language of the student. While you, the tutor, doesn't need to be on the camera, the examiners really do need to see your students. Check that examiners can see the student and that the lighting is appropriate. Some students sat in what appeared to be darkness. Ensure the student can be seen in the recording. Again, this is really important as it helps the examiner to see how well your student is undertaking the task. Sometimes darkness on recordings can actually be due to too much light, so practice beforehand in the space you're going to use. Students should try not to read off their planning documents word for word during the professional discussion. We'll touch on this again later, but remember their planning documents are in support of the discussion rather than a script. Ensure the discussion is not interrupted by external factors, for example, people entering the room or knocking on the door, as this affects the student's confidence. Try to find a space that's relatively quiet. We know this can be a challenge, but a sign on the door to encourage passers-by to be mindful of noise or deter people from entering the room could really help. Ensure timings are adhered to. Any recordings over the allocated time can't be marked, and this may mean that questions are not fully heard. The best way to support this is to practice, remembering it's 15 minutes in total, with 5 allocated for the student to present and 10 for your questioning. Okay, lastly, let's explore task 4, the reflection activity. Students often miss marks on this task, and here are some common areas for improvement. Some students didn't understand what constituted a reflective account and simply described what they'd done for each task. Reflection isn't a description. We need to encourage our students to explore this during the core delivery to support this task. Students gained higher marks, particularly when they were identifying improvements to their own knowledge, planning skills, and future practice. Some evaluations were descriptive statements, and some didn't include any reference to improvements. Both evaluation and analysis must be provided within these accounts. Students lost marks here because the 4 areas for reflection on the pro forma weren't covered. The reflective account should not cover the changes or amendments on practice with the child in the project brief, but rather in terms of overall future practice. For example, being able to plan activities using different theories and approaches in a child-centred way. So ask your student to focus here on their own development. So now that we've explored some of the most common themes related to the ESP tasks, how can we support our students to level up and gain higher marks moving forward? Over the coming slides, we'll look at some strategies you can use to enhance your student outcomes. The bigger picture. Encourage your students to think holistically about the needs of the child. Focusing on only one area can cause them to lose marks. Is there other relevant information regarding the child's holistic needs to consider? And how does the activity link to the wider curriculum? Understanding the brief. Use sample project briefs here to support your students to prepare. Unpick what they're being asked to do and how they can meet the child's needs. Can they expand on their plans and make additional links where relevant to their activity? For example, expressive art and design or PSHE. And professional discussion. Plan to practice discussions as part of your core delivery. Support your students to make the distinction between peer and professional discussion. How are they different? Encourage them to independently prepare for discussions in class in preparation for Task 3 of the ESP. Reflective practice. Use a range of reflective models in the classroom and be creative. Encourage students to reflect on their learning to support their development. They can use the ESP performer to practice. You can apply this across all the core elements to support Task 4. Digital skills. Encourage students to use PowerPoint, word processed notes, or other digital solutions as support for moving along their professional discussion. Regularly creating presentations in class will support them to practice this skill in readiness for showcasing their digital skills. And lastly, evaluation. Encourage your students to take part in peer feedback activities. Evaluations with classmates where they need to provide and receive constructive feedback can help them see different perspectives and improve their evaluation skills. Handwriting. Where students choose to handwrite rather than word process their work, remind them that their writing needs to be clear and easy to read. This will make it much easier for examiners to mark. Presentation skills. Plan to practice presentations on different topics so that students feel confident in taking part in professional discussions and speaking in front of others. Use different questioning techniques and encourage them to use their PowerPoint or notes as prompts rather than scripts, which will support them in Task 3. And proofreading. As with any piece of writing or task, remind your students to proofread their work. There are marks available for quality of written communication, so paying attention to detail can help students gain higher marks in the ESP. Now that we've explored some strategies and real ideas you can try in your classroom, I'd like to remind you of the support we offer during your T-level delivery. There are many more recorded sessions on our YouTube playlist, which is accessible following the link on screen or by searching for NCFE on YouTube. From this video today, you can navigate back to our education and early years specific recordings. You'll find videos here that cover topics from additional ESP support, learning theories, reflective practice, and tips from other providers. Please do spend some time finding what's appropriate for you, your students, and your team. You can also find support materials via our qualifications page. If you're new to T-levels, please do visit this page and take a look. Here you'll find lots of resources to support your delivery. Via this page, you can book to join us on our live events and see what support we're offering moving forward. The page is divided into months so you can easily see what's coming up, what's available, and plan it into your diary. We also offer one-to-one support. If you haven't already, please do book a call with me so that we can work together as you either begin or continue your T-level journey. These calls are designed to be bespoke for your provider and a chance to get support and for us to answer your questions. You'll see the link to book a call is on the bottom of the slide. If you have any individual T-level queries in the meantime, you can also email our dedicated T-level team via the email address on screen. Lastly, we'd really appreciate it if you could use the QR code on the screen to share your valuable feedback. Your comments really do help us reflect on our sessions and offer targeted and relevant support, which in turn allows you to get the best outcomes for your students. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. I hope you found this recording useful, and I look forward to seeing you at our live events over the coming academic year.